Hello art friends, I'm Robin. Today we'll continue working with line and our dyed fabric, and we're going to introduce some simple stitching. Now if you haven't sewn before, this is a great chance to get to know some basic stitches that will add detail to our dyed fabric. And there's been a movement recently amongst many sewers called the slow stitching movement, and that looks at stitching as being part of our meditative practice. It encourages people to create a sense of flow with its simple in and out action of running stitch with very little complexity to our design. So let's see how our sun-dyed fabric turned out, and let's see what we're going to need for our next lesson. Now let's see what we're going to need. We have our dyed fabric from our last lesson with our paper strips on it. We've got some scissors. I've got some threads, with needles with threads in them. I've got a dye and a brush. I've also got a range of threads here. Now if you're going to use very thick fabric to do your dyeing on, then you can use a thicker threads and a thicker needle. If your fabric is finer, then you'll need finer threads and a finer needle. So I've got a range of needles as well. Okay, let's get started and see what happened when we remove our shapes. So let's just take these off here. And you can start to see that gorgeous little line of different colours that's been created by the sun. Now I've got my dye here, and if I want to, I'm just going to have a look and just do a couple more lines here. I don't want to go over some of my beautiful effects, but I might just use my dye and just do a couple more. Now remember that your sun dye is also a dye that you can just use to paint with as well. There's a couple of blobs there. It will blend in. What about down here? Another line here. A couple of lines. Okay. Right, so I'm going to put our dye away. Okay, that won't take long to dry. Now, the slow stitching movement is all about just being able to be one with the flow. So we talked about before our line, just taking our line for a walk and not having too much purpose. And our stitching is the same. It's just grabbing our thread and just in and out with not much intent and not much purpose. Right, so here's our piece. And when you choose your colours, think about getting a nice contrast colour. I might choose this, starting off with this lovely light green. Now, if you want to frame your piece at the end, and we're working towards a nice art piece, then I wouldn't be tying a knot at the end. If you want to just use it as your art practice and a nice sense of just an activity, then you're happy to tie a knot. If you don't want to tie a knot, then just leave a little tail. I might start here. Pull it almost to the end, a little tail. Then do one tiny stitch and pull it out, and that will be nice and strong and it won't come out. So running stitch is simply just an in and out stitch, and I'm going to try and follow some of these lines left by our sun dye, and it's just going in and out, in and out, and pulling. In and out and pulling. Now I'm trying to continue that lovely wobbly curvy line that I've made. So I'm just going to keep going. Don't, just gently make sure that it's not too scrunched up, so give it a pull occasionally. Now if you want to, you can just do one stitch at a time if you find that easier, and pull. Or as you get a little bit more confident, you might try and do pick up a few stitches along the way. And just remember to pull them gently. And you can see now I've got that nice flow going. So I'm just going to continue using my lines, and I'm going to continue sewing my pieces up and down, in and out, until I get to the very end of my piece here. Now once you get to the end, make sure you have the stitch ending on the back, and if you want to, you can just do the same thing, a little stitch and then a little tiny stitch and then cut it off, or you might want to just to carry it up to the next piece. For people who are just starting and you're concerned about when you pull the needle that the thread's going to come out, the trick is to when you pull, you're just pulling the whole thread, not so much pulling the needle. So as you're going through your lines, and you pull, just be pulling the thread and not the needle, and that means it won't unthread as you're going along. So continue your design. As I said, just find spaces, just enjoy that sense of flow, and continue with your running lines. Now you might want to do little ones, you might want to go big ones. Just continue. Okay, I'm going to show you a different technique, same principle, that same in and out process, but we're just going to, let's have a look down here. Just a tiny little stitch to start with, and then pull it back. Right, so instead of going in and out this way, we're going to go across backwards and forwards this time. So I'm going to do some little lines going through there. Using my therapeutic, just going to pick them up and just do some little lines here. Try not to make them too scrunchy or too tight. As I said, don't overthink. Don't worry about making them all equal. Just enjoy that lovely calmness and sense of flow we get when we're stitching. Now I'm just going to continue working on this. I've got these colours, the ones I've chosen, some different greens and blue, and these are the ones I've just got from a normal haberdashery thread shop. Sometimes with our art, it's really hard to know when to finish and what is finished. I'm just enjoying that simple action of choosing where my stitch has to go. You might want to continue stitching the whole piece, or just like I've done, leave little bits and little bands of stitching. Now, your finished piece could be a cushion, it could be a frame, it could be part of a glasses case, lots of things you could do with your piece. You've never sewn before, you can see how addictive stitching is. And it's not about the evenness of your work that counts, but just enjoying the action. I hope you can find some time in your week to continue this simple art practice. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you for our next lesson.